The challenge of this talk is to talk everything I want to show you in that amount of time. So let's start by the presentation. So my name is Frederic Descamps. As you can hear, I'm speaking the most spread language in the world, which is the bad English. So if there is something you don't understand because of my French accent, just let me, just ask and I will repeat or change the word. But I'm not from France, I'm from Belgium, and I'm very proud of it. So I am known on social media as LeFred. I'm a MySQL evangelist. I'm working with MySQL since a long time, so since version 3.20. And I have a blog post called lefred.be where you can find a lot of information related to MySQL if you use MySQL. So the agenda of today, so we will see the MySQL new release model. I don't know if you have heard about it, but we are changing the release model. So I will talk about that. I don't know what to expect with the audience. So as a DBA, I really love InnoDB. And so I will talk about InnoDB improvement because I think it's very, very important. If you don't know what InnoDB is, it's a storage engine for MySQL. And if you have a question, I can answer this question later. No worries. We will discuss about MySQL architectures and MySQL REST service, something you may not have heard about it before. And also MySQL HeatWave, just some slides on what we are doing in the cloud. So the new release model. So now, if you have seen, we are in MySQL 8. The latest version of MySQL 8 is 8.35. But we were changing and adding features in MySQL 8 all the time. At every release, you had something new. And because people didn't want to wait 4 years to get something new, which was the case with 5.6, 5.7. And with 8, we decided to stop that because, now people go, if they want a furniture, they go to IKEA and they get the furniture directly. When I was young, I remember we were buying a furniture, you were to your furniture, then you wait 6 months that the furniture get to your house, which is not the case anymore. People want new stuff directly. So we have changed that in MySQL 8. But then we realize also that customers and community decide, sometime we want something more stable without new features. So, and we decide then to go, like Ubuntu, to use an LTS release where there will be bug fixes, security patches. It will be backward compatible, so you can update and then downgrade if needed. There will be a new LTS version every 2 years. And the support lifecycle, because sometimes people also need support and they pay us for it, will be 5 years premier and 3 years extended. So for 8 years, you will be able to run your LTS version with support. Innovation release, of course, we will put new stuff in it, and you will be able to migrate between LTS release, but maybe not downgrade. We will not support that. We will have every quarter, and the support lifecycle is very short. But the quality is GA. So if you want to use the innovation release in production, you are allowed to do that. It's not like, it's a beta version or alpha version. This is also a GA version, but with a short term for support. So in 8.0, we have done, so it's GA since 2018 already. So almost 5 years that we are there and even more. So we made a lot of changes there, really a lot. I don't know if you are already using MySQL 8.0, but there is CTE support, Windows function, AskJoin, explainalize, histograms. If there is something you are interested in it, and I will not have time to cover that right now, just ask me later and I will explain you that. We did also set persist, restart, resource group, plenty of new, very nice stuff in MySQL 8. And also the MySQL document store. Who never heard about MySQL document store? You all know what it is? Oh, that's good. But if you don't know what it is, we can talk also to that. Then we started, and quite recently in July, with the new innovation release. And for example, in 8.1, we have added read replicas. You can add read replicas to your cluster very easily now with 8.1. And we have also some new password validation. So we try to always add new stuff. But it was because it was a change of release model. It's few new stuff currently, but it might be much more later. In 8.2, so very recent, it was last week, we have added transparent read-write splitting. People were expecting that for a long time. So now you have that in MySQL 8.2. We have also web authentication method in enterprise version. And we have also for multi-threaded applier in replication, support SQL after GTIDs. So to stop replication, but it was not working with multi-threaded replication. It works now. So let's discuss about the InnoDB improvement. So for example, something very cool, it is you have the possibility to disable the redo logs. So as you know, InnoDB is ACID compliant, meaning that it has also the durability. So if your machine crash, when it restarts, the data that has been committed should not be lost. But at the first time you load data, if it crashes, you can load the data again. It's not a big deal. So you can disable that durability to make the ingestion much, much faster. And so you have the possibility to do that with in MySQL 8. And this is how you do that. So when you do that, you can add data much, much more faster, 10 times faster than when you have the full durability. So here, just an example how to do that. So here it was 64 gigabytes in 4 minutes, for example, a bit less than 5 minutes. In InnoDB, it's quite good. You have also parallel threads now supported in MySQL 8 with, for online operation, and you use that with InnoDB DDL threads, so you can increase the amount of threads, and you have, and every thread will use a shared buffer to also use memory for that. And depending on the CPU you have, depending on the memory you have, you can accelerate some DDLs in MySQL. So for example here, I am doing an index. Adding an index takes a lot of time. You may be aware of that. And so here I had an index, and you can see it takes 9 minutes to add this index. Now, these are the defaults in MySQL 8. So 4 DDL threads, this size of buffer size, and the read threads are also 4. So you can change this information and check. The best is to test by yourself on a test environment, depending on your machine. So here, in my case, I'm checking how many CPU do I have in my server. So I have 16 CPU or 16 cores, and I will allocate 1 gigabyte for the thread. So this is how you do that. So 8 for DDL threads, 8 for the read threads, and 1 gigabyte for the buffer size. And now if I do the alter again, right, you can see that adding an index that was taking 9 minutes will take 3 minutes now, much faster. So now MySQL has the possibility to do all these operations in parallel. And of course, it's up to you to, depending on your hardware, depending on how complicated the DDL, the statement. For example, I make some tests, and if I use a buffer size of 2 gigabytes with 4 threads, you can see that I could lower the 9 minutes to 2 minutes 43 for the same operation. So this is very good. So instant DDL. DDL, it's a pain for the DBAs. Usually the developers, they don't really care. It works on my laptop, but in production, it's another story, right? So we are working to make all the DDLs instant, meaning that you make a modification and it's done. You don't need to wait long and stuff. These are the current DDLs. Our plan is to have all the DDLs instant. But that takes time. It's a lot of changes in the code to do that. But we have already adding a column before. When we started this project, we were adding the column at the end only. Now we can add it wherever we want in the table, dropping a column, renaming a column. All that, it's instant. So these are the most, let's say, most spread DDLs that people do usually. But we are working to make them all instant. So for example, here, I will add a new column, right? And you can see it takes 0 seconds because it's instant, right? Clone plugin. Who never heard about the clone plugin in MySQL? One guy, two guys, three guys? Yeah, you have heard it. So clone plugin, it's very, very nice. I think this plugin didn't get all the lights it deserves because this change operations for DBAs. You can clone an instance, or you can say, oh, I want to clone that instance on disk, but I want to clone that instance to another instance. I want to get the information for a cluster. All that using the clone plugin, it works very, very well and very fast. So you can say, oh, I want to clone locally. I want to clone somewhere else. You can do that very easily in SQL. So you don't need to access the file system as the DBA. In SQL, you can clone your instance. So here, example, clone local data directory. So you say, I want to clone all my instance somewhere, or you can say, oh, I want to clone it from that machine, and you will get all the data from that machine on your own machine. There is a new redo lock architecture. So if you are familiar with InnoDB, you may know that the redo lock size can be a performance issue if it's too small compared to your workload. If you identify that it's too small, you need to change it. Before MySQL 8, you had to change it and restart the server. Now you can change it online. So this is very cool. And just one single variable to change is InnoDB redo lock capacity. You change that and it works. So this is how you do that. You can see we don't restart, we don't do anything. You change it and it's done. So for performance, this is very cool. Something I really like, and this is if you're a DBA and you have to manage applications that you don't own, so meaning, oh, I take care of the database, but the developers do whatever they want. I just here to be sure that they have the data. A lot of people usually don't use a primary key, or they don't create a primary key. With MySQL 8.0, as a DBA, you can enable SQL generate invisible primary key, and it's done. You are out of issues. A primary key will be created for you every time people will create a table. So because primary key are very, very important in InnoDB. And it's excellent for replication. I won't go into the details about why primary key it's really important, but if we want, we can discuss that later. But this is how we do. We enable generation of invisible primary key. We create a table without primary key. We add data, and then we can see that we don't have primary key. So the application doesn't crash, doesn't have extra columns or something, right? But in fact, we have here, we can see an invisible primary key that allows us to have everything working, because it's very important to have a primary key. We can externalize it if we want. We just add the myRow ID and we can see it. But the application, if it doesn't use it, it won't see it and it won't have any problems, right? So yeah, in information schema, some applications sometimes, I don't like it, but they do that. They check in information schema about, oh, what are the definition of the tables? And because of that, they can change a form or they can create something. And so you can say, oh, I don't want to see it, because this application could break if they see the myRow ID, so the generated primary key in the definition of the table. So you can disable it and then they won't see it. It's still there, it's still used, it's still good, but they don't see it. So MySQL architectures. This is for not for DBA for developers, but more for DBAs and operator. But before, so who is using MySQL replication? Okay, the guys I know, you, okay. Asynchronous replication. Are you using asynchronous replication? What type of replication? You don't know? Okay, so when you want to do HA with asynchronous replication, believe me, in the old time, it was a pain. It was plenty of tricks, workaround, and solutions that were not maintained, that could break. It was really a pain. Now, in MySQL, we understood that and we created easy to deploy and easy to manage architectures. So we have, for example, MySQL InnoDB cluster or MySQL InnoDB cluster set. So it's based on a different type of replication. And the InnoDB cluster is for HA, InnoDB cluster set is for disaster recovery, right? So we can discuss about that. I can show you demo on that later if you want. But it's very, very easy to deploy this currently. So this is how it creates. So for example, I am in MySQL shell. MySQL shell allows JavaScript, Python, and SQL. So here I do, okay, I create my first cluster. So I do DBA create cluster and give it a name. So I'm connected to one machine and I say, okay, my cluster will be Ubuntu cluster Riga. Then I add another instance and I give where is the new instance. So it's DB Ubuntu Riga 2 and with the admin user. And then I add another instance. So I have 3 instances now. Then I can say, oh, now this is HA. So I have already a cluster running with 3 machines. Then I say, oh, I want to create a DR, another cluster, and I create a cluster set. And I say, okay, I create cluster set Ubuntu domain, and I create a replica cluster. So a cluster in another data center, in another country or whatever. And I use a machine in Brussels, for example. And then I add other 2 nodes to it. And I can create read replicas if I want. So I can add extra machines to read the data from Riga or from Brussels very easily. So one command and it takes care of everything. Data provisioning, creation of users, all that security, it's all in this command, nothing else to do. And what you have something like this created. So you have the clusters in 2 different data centers with read replicas. Read replicas can replicate from one single machine. So I don't know if you don't see it here, but from here, so it replicates only from the primary, or you can say, oh, I want to replicate from secondaries or whatever. You can change all that very easily with this architecture. And finally, in MySQL Router 8.2, we have added the read-write splitting. Transparent, meaning that when you were creating these before and you wanted to read data from secondary or here, the application needed to connect here on a different port. You had 2 ports, one port for writes and one port for reads. So your application needs to be configured to say, oh, all my reads needs to go to that port, all my writes needs to go to that port. Depending on the application, it's feasible. For example, if you use WordPress, there is what you call an extension that allows you that, and you need to configure a new DB system to say all the reads goes there. And you give the second port and it's okay. But it was not enough. So now, with one single port, the router will be able to know, so the port by default it's 6450, so 6450, and with that, it's the read-write splitting, meaning all the reads or all the transactions that my write will go on the right node, so the primary, and all the reads will go somewhere else, right? Oh, yeah, I don't have any other picture on that, but if you want, I can show you a demo later on that, no worries. MySQL REST service. So now we have added the MySQL REST service, we call it MRS, to design RESTful web application that return JSON data from your relational schema in the database. It also uses the router. And you can create that very easily, and I will show you how, using MySQL shell in the Visual Studio Code. So I don't know if you know, but we have MySQL shell in Visual Studio Code now. So you can, all what I show you, you can have it in the Visual Studio. And MRS, you are here, you enable the service, you can say, oh, for this table, for example, SB test 1, I want to enable all these, for example, all this column, or you can say, oh, I only want this and this, give it a root for it, and stuff like that. And then you have your service, and you get all the information you want. So if you want to create, and in the background, it's MySQL, right? It's a relational database that provides you this information very easily. So this is also something very new. I don't know if you have already tested it. I don't think many people tested it currently, but it's very, very useful for this duality of relational database and JSON also. And for example, Oracle database also announced this support, and we have it too in MySQL. And finally, to finish the presentation, I want to just give you some information about what the team is doing. So we are doing not only MySQL community that you all know, but we are also in the cloud. And in the cloud, there is some innovation there. But something very, very important to know is that to make all this stuff available, like machine learning, like lakehouse, autopilot and stuff, to make all that possible in OCI, we need to change the code of MySQL. And all the changes that are needed for making these application goes to MySQL community also. So this is very good, but this is a differentiator, meaning this stuff, it's only available in OCI. But if you need to go to do OLAP and stuff very fast, the cloud can help you to do that. For example, we have also, if you don't want to use InnoDB data, use Parquet object store information, you can also use Lakehouse, for example, in OCI. So there are plenty of stuff. If you want to check at that, go to OCI and see. The very important stuff I want to tell about this is this. If you plan to use MySQL in one cloud, right, as a service, so if you say, oh, I don't want to manage MySQL myself, I want that somebody else take care of it, then if you put it in OCI, you will sponsor the MySQL Community Edition because it's the same developers that are doing both systems. So every time you deploy there, all the change that will be happen to go there will be also in the Community Edition. So this is quite obvious. You will not have that when you are deploying on other cloud. Share your love to MySQL. Use hashtag MySQL, MySQL community on social media. We have a Slack channel. So if you want to ask questions about whatever you want related to MySQL, join our Slack channel. I am there most of the time also answering to people. So don't hesitate. There is, I think, how many members do we have now? I think it's 15,000 people there. So it's a lot of people. You are, of course, welcome. So, do you have questions? Because I think I'm on time, right? If you want to see all what I discussed right now, if you want to see demo, if you want to see how it works, like, for example, document store, like how to create a cluster, or to create a cluster set, find me. I'm easy to find. I'm, I think, the only one with MySQL in the back. Find me around, and I can show you all that. So do you have questions?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I just had a question regarding the read-write splitting. So is it transaction aware, or, I mean, how it's basically working? Is it statement-based? Yeah.
So both. So let's say you don't take a transaction. You don't say transaction. You make a read. It will go, if you decide that the routing should be secondary and read replicas, for example, it will go find a read machine and provide you the information. In the same session, the next you do an insert, it will go to the primary. You don't change anything. Now you say, oh, I start a read transaction, because you can start a read transaction. It will go to a secondary, and all the statement in the transaction will go to a read machine. Now you say, oh, I start a transaction, just start transaction. If you don't define anything, you will go directly, all the transaction will be made on the primary. And per session, so you are in a session, you can say, oh, I want to do set router option, and you say, all what I will do now needs to go to the primary, even if it's a read or whatever, you can define that too. So all that is possible. Another question?
Even read replica.
So if I thought about the REST interface, is it full RESTful support every HTTP call? It's just a read, or just you can post?
No, you can post also. You can do
Even
both.
if you like, how does it manage when you have like in your post object you have some kind of strange relation back in the data? So you're like trying to write in different tables at the same time.
Yeah,
Can you do stuff like that?
I don't know the answer. I haven't tested it, but to what I read and because it's very, very new, right? It's possible. You can, for example, create one of these objects. You can read like a join or something like that. You can extract that on multiple machine to read. So I tested it. I didn't try to write, but I'm almost sure it will work the same way. So it should be possible.
Thanks, Fred. The next question in MySQL router selection, read write. Will router select less loaded replica or will choose random?
No, currently, so you can define so you can have a list, and from the list, I think the default, it takes the first one available from that list. So you will reach always the same. In the example I showed, I was using round robin, so it will round robin. And but I don't think we checked. I think there is a check about latency, meaning the. For example, if you go to a read replica, the lag, replication lag, I think there is something about that, or if it's not, it will come. And but about load itself, CPU, I don't think so, because if you want to know the load, it's more complicated from the MySQL perspective itself. It's possible, but then you need to have some plugins that maybe not everybody has enabled.
So with the new LTS releases, it said the 5-year Premier, 3-year extended. Is that 5-year Premier also the open source period? Like is that released publicly, that 5-year period?
Yeah, the thing is that the open source one it will be the same time, but you don't have support other than writing a bug, right? There is no, most of the time, there is no, let's say, guarantee that it will be fixed. Right, you can write a bug. There are bugs here that are open for MySQL 4 already still there because there are no sense, or it affects only one person, something like that. When you are a customer and you have an issue, you create a bug, they will fix it anyway because you have a contract with us. With the community, it's like depending how many have the issue, who's looking at it, but the product will live all the same time. So you will have the open source version that will follow that time. So every bug, the bug fixes and the security fixes, you will have it in open source also at the same time.
Okay, yeah. So for the 5 years, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Since no more question, I have a couple. You showed a good example of real-time changes read log to increase it. Can I shrink it the same easily?
Yes.
Super. And primary key hidden, created in background, hidden one. What happens if a user decides to create his own one? Will it drop the hidden one and recreate new one, or it will reuse it, or how it works?
I need to verify, but if they want to create it afterward, it will tell you have already a primary key. I'm not sure 100%, but I think this is what you verify. I think this is happening. You said you have already, so you need to do at that time you need to do an alter, remove and add on the same. You can do it on the same alter statement, but you need to do it manually.
Why MySQL just simply don't drop hidden one if you are creating?
Yeah, I need to check that, but we have a bug open to do it. Now, will it be done next release or after? I don't know. It's also some feedback we have. For example, the myRow ID, it's a name they decided, and you are not able to change it. Some people would like to change that as a variable, but so it's a feature request, and point me, and I will support it. Other question? No? Okay. Thank you very much.